What's up, YouTube? Today we're going to be looking at the Jungle Cup once again, and the team we're going to take a look at today is Steelix, Abomasnow, and Lantern. Now you might notice one thing about this team is that it's ABA weak to two different typings, both fighting and fire. And the reason that this is okay for this meta is that Steelix beats all the fire in this meta, and there's only one fighter. So it's kind of a calculated risk. Steelix, as a Thunderfang user specifically, can beat all the fires because they're all flyers. So, and then Abomasnow kind of covers its main weakness in ground otherwise, because it's also weak to water, but it has Thunderfangs for this water. And the only water grounds are the Mud Boys, which Abomasnow is good against. So, an overall pretty decent ABA style team here, with a good core of Abomasnow and Lantern in the back as well. You'll also notice that I'm going to be running Powder Snow on Abomasnow over Leafage, and even though you can tell on the bottom there that Powder Snow is a strictly worse move than Leafage on paper, Powder Snow, because of its ice typing, actually gives Abomasnow plenty more wins. I believe that's like 6 more wins there. So definitely the right move you want to use for this meta. So without further ado, let's hop into the battles. Into the first match, we've got Steelix into Pachirisu. So this is a fantastic lead as the opponent is completely walled. The opponent ends up safe switching into a Togekiss, and now in comes the Lantern. I throw 5 Thunderfangs and then catch onto my Lantern, catching the Aura Sphere, which would be super effective on the Steelix, and now their Pecks are resisted. And you're going to notice that 2 Aura Spheres are not enough to knock out, so I can actually let a second one go. I'm not really worried about them going for the full farm down. I'm now going to overfarm as much as I can, go for the knockout blow with the Surf to pick up the knockout on the Togekiss, unless the opponent commits a shield, and they actually do. So my opponent wants to fight for switch here. However, I'm going to make it to another Surf before they're able to get to another Aura Sphere, so I will just go for the Surf. And the opponent can double shield here to flip switch, but that really wouldn't be the end of the world, because then I can just tank the Aura Sphere on the Steelix, get the Thunderfang farm down, and then have Abomasnow for the Pachirisu, which also resists electric. So either way, I'm in a pretty decent position. And chances are, if they're already this weak to the Abomasnow, then I should be in a pretty good position. In comes the Abomasnow. It's an Altaria in the back, and then back in comes Pachirisu. Pachirisu, of course, is a very bulky Pokemon, so I will full send the Energy Ball now that they have no shields. That connects, and we get the defense drop as well. The opponent now will make it to a Hyper Fang, which I will just let go on the chance that they were not running a coverage move, as the best win rate is with double electric. So I did just let that go, but back in comes the Altaria. They're going to get outpaced, so the opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, Bellibolt on the lead. So back-to-back electric leads. What are the chances? But this is fantastic for the Steelix. The opponent ends up safe swapping right away, which leads me to believe that they're on Thunder Shock as opposed to Sucker Punch. So when the Forretress comes in and I don't have a great response to Forretress in the back, I decide I'm just going to stay in and try and win switch, because having my Abomasnow on the Bellibolt will be okay too. I have 2 electric resists on this team, and that's pretty much all that matters. So even though my opponent does outpace me here, I know 2 Sand Tombs will not be enough to knock out. So I will just let this go, and going for a resisted Bug Bite farm down, even with my defense lowered, would not do as much damage as these Thunderfangs. The opponent ends up just committing a shield and then letting their Forretress go. So now I have 1 shield advantage and switch. The opponent ends up coming back in with the Bellibolt, and it is a Thundershock Bellibolt. So we are in a very good position here. I'm just going to stay in this matchup, force them to pick up the knockout with a charge move, and then come in with my Abomasnow. But no, my opponent goes for the full Thundershock farm down, which is crazy. In comes the Abomasnow, and in the back is an Abomasnow of their own. So this is actually a very tricky position to be in, because even though we have an energy lead and a shield advantage, if I give my opponent even 2 of my shields back, the opponent can snipe with a Zap Cannon, because they have loads of energy after fully farming down my Steelix. And the Zap Cannon will actually be enough to pick up the Abomasnow after all of these Powder Snows from my opponent. So I will just commit to the full farm down, and after I commit the second shield, expecting a snipe from my opponent, I'm going to pivot into the Lantern, and we get the catch. Is it a Parabolic Charge, or is it the Zap Cannon? It is the Zap Cannon, so that is a huge catch. That is only neutral damage on the Lantern, but the opponent will still be forced to throw their energy in order to pick up the knockout. They do end up boosting their defense with a Parabolic Charge, but I can get to the Energy Ball on the CMP tie, winning CMP, and with their defense boosted, it's still not enough to let them hang on to an Energy Ball from that range. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Into next match, we've got Steelix into Forretress. So we've seen this matchup before. A couple of them have safe switched into the Forretress, but this is an okay position to be in. They will be able to outpace me to the Sand Tombs, but that's no problem. Unless the opponent is running Earthquake, we should be in a pretty good position. The opponent ends up banking all that energy and then coming in with the Guzzlord, hoping to connect with a Rock Tomb potentially later in the match. But we have a great response to Guzzlord in Abomasnow. The opponent will end up letting that go. I know a Sludge Bomb will do big damage, but I will just let this go because I don't really want to give the Forretress any more farm. We end up getting the simultaneous knockout, so now it comes down to a 50-50 chance. Where do we get the alignment? Do we get the Steelix on the Forretress or something else? No, we do actually get the exact same lead matchup that we saw earlier. So they're going to start spamming out these Sand Tombs. Here comes Sand Tomb number 1. That does very little damage to the Steelix. Here comes a crunch already. Is the opponent willing to commit a shield? No, they will just let that go. We get the defense fall as well. In comes a second Sand Tomb, and I will probably just let this go and then come in with my Lantern. In the back is a Talonflame, so we have a perfect answer to Talonflame in the back in Lantern. The opponent resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. Bit of a tricky lead in the next match. We've got Dunsparce, which does have super effective coverage into my entire team. So I'm going to be forced to stay in this matchup. This is probably where I'd want to see it the most, as rollouts are double resisted on the Steelix, which means they have no fast move pressure. And we get the defense fall on the very first crunch. That is absolutely huge because now I can basically just start spamming out Psychic Fangs. And you're going to notice 2 drill runs are not enough to knock out. And because their fast move is double resisted, I feel very comfortable letting both of these go. And at this point, I know I can outpace the opponent, make it to a crunch before they make it to their 3rd drill run, and crunch from this range nearly picks up the knockout. They under tap the move in order to get it off. Drill run will pick up the knockout here, but all that's going to do is set up farm for the Lantern. No way they're going to have more than one with Pokemon with ground coverage, but no. In the back is a Marowak. I end up going for the Bone Club catch onto my Abomasnow, and in the back is a 3rd ground Pokemon. So we have a team that is ABA weak to ground, and we're facing up against a team that has triple ground coverage on all of their Pokemon. That is just absolutely absurd, but I end up getting the shield on the Stone Edge, now able to make it to the back-to-back Weather Balls before the opponent is able to make it to the next charge move. They end up letting that go. I'm going to under tap the move in case the opponent plays to the CMP tie, but no, they end up going for the extra Mud Bomb. I'm now going to go for the catch of the Rock Slide onto my Lantern. The question is, did the opponent go for the bait, or did they full send the Rock Slide to pick up the knockout? They did go for the Rock Slide, so catching a neutral Rock Slide on a Lantern is absolutely huge, because now we can no shield that and save that shield for later when we need it. They end up getting the full farm down, but they are not at the back-to-back moves, and now I'm 1 away. So as long as my opponent is 1 away from the next charge move, this game should be over. They bait with the Bone Club, but that does not let them to get to the Rock Slide, and now we make it to the Weather Ball. Weather Ball from this range easily picks up the knockout on the Marowak, and that's a triple ground coverage team beaten with an ABA weakness to ground. Into the next match, a bit of a tricky lead. We've got Steelix and a Clodsire. Now the reason this is so tricky is that even though my opponent's fast move is triple resisted, mine is double resisted, and we don't really have any great charge moves for the opponent. We can only get to these Psychic Fangs, which are super effective, but they don't do much damage besides lowering the opponent's defense, whereas my opponent has a Nuke move and Earthquake, which does huge damage to the Steelix. It's not quite enough to one-shot the Steelix, but it puts us in a bit of a tricky situation. I will now go for Psychic Fangs number 2. Doesn't even put them into the yellow health range. I end up going for the Earthquake catch on my Abomasnow, but I'm unsuccessful. The opponent holds onto their energy. Now going to be able to connect with a super effective Stone Edge. I do get the shield on the Stone Edge, but my opponent is already at another Stone Edge. I guess I miscounted there. I should have thrown when I got to the charge move, but in the back is a Greninja. So because I know one Night Slash is not enough to knock out, I'm actually going to go for a bait here, hoping that I can grab both shields back from my opponent. They end up committing the shield on the Weather Ball bait, and now we'll go for charge move number 1. Night Slash connects, but it's not enough to knock out, but they get the 2x attack boost of the Night Slash. That is extremely unfortunate. I basically need them to force them out of this matchup or throw their energy, but my opponent is playing this perfectly. They overfarm as much as possible. Now going to pick up the knockout with a Night Slash. Please don't get another boost. Thank goodness. Now, I'm going to have to come in with the Lantern here because they have so much energy on this Greninja. They will go for a Night Slash right away. Now the question is, are 2 Night Slashes enough to knock out? No, not quite. The opponent over farming, trying to get me into a range where a Night Slash will KO. They end up going for the catch of the Surf, but they do not get it. In comes the Clodsire, only to get fully Water Gun farmed down. It's a Meowscarada in the back, but I have residual energy on the Abomasnow. I'm able to make it to a Weather Ball, and Weather Ball from this range picks up the knockout. Now the opponent will be forced to throw energy to pick up the knockout as Water Shurikens are resisted, and I believe they're at the back-to-back charge moves coming out of this matchup, but that's okay because I have a Thunderbolt banked. They can't throw back-to-back moves if we throw on the CMP tie. We live the Night Slash in the deep red. Not really concerned after they reset that attack boost, but Thunderbolt easily picks up the knockout on the Greninja, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got a Shadow Gyarados on the lead. This is a fantastic lead for the Thunderfang Steelix. The opponent safe switches into an Ice Fang Hippowdon. I saw the ground typing and I thought it was a Marowak, which is why I came in with the Abomasnow. A better response here probably would be the Lantern, as it takes them quite a few turns to get to that Scorching Sands, whereas Weather Ball is only neutral and Ice Fang are resisted. So coming on with the Lantern here definitely would have been the better pick. That said, I get the shield call right, or I get the shield up, which allows me to come out with a lot of energy for the Gyarados, and I can start forcing some shields back. I will end up going for back-to-back Weather Balls before the opponent is even able to make it to a crunch to pick up the knockout, and they end up grabbing both shields from my opponent. I'm not sure why they're hard committing to their Gyarados when they know they're aligned against the Thunderfang Steelix. Maybe they know they come out with a lot of energy and they can threaten a knockout with some Aqua Tails here, but instead my opponent pivots into a Quagsire in the back, so having my Abomasnow here would have been even better, but it is a Water Gun Quagsire. So Water Gun is actually resisted on their end, but neutral on mine. I'm able to go for the Surf. At this point, if they're low enough that I can probably Water Gun farm them down, and I'm not threatened by one Stone Edge, so I let it go, but they go for the Aqua Tail bait. My opponent immediately resigns the match, and we are able to take that win. In tonight's match, very tricky lead. We've got an Abomasnow. So I'm forced to stay in this matchup because I can't come in with my own Abomasnow, as I'd be perpetually down one turn. And Lantern has an abysmal matchup against Abomasnow because everything is completely walled, even though they are running Powder Snow. So I'm forced to just kind of stay in this matchup. Steelix, of course, can absorb 2 Weather Balls, so I will just go for the crunch, let the second Weather Ball go, throw the Psychic Fangs on the CMP tie as to when they get to their next back-to-back charge moves. That way I can at least connect with some neutral damage before I go down here. Here comes the Psychic Fangs. That lowers the opponent's defense. They end up giving me Switch, which is absolutely incredible because now in comes a Water Gun Lantern into a Charizard in the back. My opponent is completely walled here. They're on Ember, Blast Burn, and Air Cutter most likely. So being completely walled is fantastic because they can go for back-to-back Blast Burns. I can no-shield both, come out with so much energy, which will force the opponent to throw their Abomasnow energy, and that is absolutely perfect for me because I can just let this go, come in with my own Abomasnow, and look for the full farm down. The opponent ends up pivoting into a Shadow Gyarados in the back, but Shadow Gyarados will be outpaced. I'm able to make it to the Weather Ball. Weather Ball will be grabbing the final shield from my opponent, or the first shield from my opponent. In comes Thunderfang Steelix. They're looking for the full farm down. They actually do get it. That's a bit tricky for me, actually. We've done huge damage, so I will end up getting both shields here, as Crunch will do way more damage than a Weather Ball. They're unable to get to back-to-back charge moves, so we get the full farm down, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got another Shadow Gyarados on the lead. This is where we want to see it. The opponent stays in to check the fast move, and in comes a Hippowdon, but this Hippowdon is on Sand Attack, which means their fast move is resisted at least. So I can let the super effective Weather Ball go, knowing that I'm not really threatened by a farm down, and now I can look to pick up the knockout with a Weather Ball of my own. Weather Ball ends up grabbing a shield from my opponent. I am able to make it to Weather Ball number 2, but my opponent throws right before I get there, so I will end up coming the shield back. I want to at least force the opponent to go down 2 shields in his matchup if they want Switch, because even if they do, I'll be in a very good position, and they do. So now I'm going to look for the next charge move. Can I get there? No, not before the opponent gets the full Sand Attack farm down. But I can take this Scorching Sands on my Steelix, knowing that my Steelix likely doesn't have play into whatever's in the back if it's another ground, and then I can just come in with my Lantern, get a nice energy lead, and threaten that Gyarados with a Thunderbolt if it wants to come back in. Back in comes the Gyarados. Gyarados, of course, cannot take a double super effective Thunderbolt. I will end up getting the shield on the Crunch, as Crunch would do pretty big damage to the Lantern. We get the Crunch call correct, and now I'm looking for the farm down. Looking to get to Looking for the overfarm. The opponent ends up throwing their energy, but this is not enough for a crunch yet. It's just enough for an Aqua Tail. Now able to make it to the double super effective Thunderbolt. This will easily be enough to pick up the knockout on the Gyarados. What's in the back? It's a Piloswine, but Piloswine will be outpaced here. I'm able to make it to the surf before they're able to make it to the Stone Edge, which is their only bit of neutral damage here. Surf picks up the knockout on the Piloswine, and we are able to take that win. Into the next match, we've got Steelix into Shadow Scizor. This is another good lead as bullet punches are resisted, and we have neutral Thunderfangs and Crunch for this matchup. The opponent does farm up to the Trailblaze here, but I can survive Trailblaze no problem, and boosting their attack doesn't really do all that much for them as their fast move is resisted. I now will go for the Crunch right before they make it to the Night Slash, and Crunch, it's neutral damage. It will easily be enough to pick up the knockout on the Shadow Scizor, and the opponent does end up letting that go. In comes a Furret. Furret, of course, has a pretty good matchup into my Lantern as they have super effective Trailblaze. So I'm just going to stay in this matchup, force them to either throw their energy or go for the full farm down. And if they go for that full farm down, I'm going to be able to connect with a Crunch plus a Psychic Fangs. That lowers their defense, putting them into the yellow health range. And now in comes a Abomasnow. In the back is an Altaria. The opponent tried to reset that debuff onto an Altaria, but Altaria has a terrible matchup against the Abomasnow, so they will resign the match. And we are able to take that win. Into the next match, bit of a neutral lead. We've got Steelix into the Morpeko. Morpeko, of course, is running Seed Bomb in this meta, so Seed Bomb hits for neutral damage, so I will unfortunately just have to let that go, and I am completely walled here. I will go for the single resisted Crunch as opposed to the double resisted Psychic Fangs. Crunch does put them into the yellow health range, but now this could be a neutral Aura Wheel coming my way, but the opponent instead goes for another Seed Bomb for some reason. Neutral Aura Wheel definitely the way to go, as it's just a far better charge move. It does, however, mean that I have to throw energy earlier because it's 5-4 pacing to the Seed Bomb as opposed to 5-5 for the Aura Wheel. So maybe my opponent knew that and didn't want me to get to a second Crunch. They will end up going for a third Seed Bomb, but at this point I think I can just get the full Thunderfang farm down. My opponent realizes that, so in comes an Altaria. I will stay in to take the resisted Dragon Breaths, go for the Psychic Fangs to lower their defense, throw a couple more Thunderfangs, and then go for the catch onto my Lantern, where my opponent is completely walled. Both Sky Attack and Flamethrower are resisted, and now that their defense is lowered, these Water Guns look like they're doing more damage than my opponent's Dragon Breaths, which is absolutely insanity. I will now just let the second charge move go through, as I am not threatened by any of the resisted charge moves. I'm going to overfarm quite a bit here, now looking to pick up the knockout with the Thunderbolt. Thunderbolt from this range should easily be enough to pick up the knockout, but the opponent ends up committing a shield. And you know what? I don't even think a Sky Attack KOs, and I'm going to just take a shield advantage for my Abomasnow in the back. So in comes the Abomasnow. We get the full Powder Snow farm down. What is that final Pokemon? My opponent does not want to show me, so they resign the match, and we are able to take that win. But yeah, that is Steelix, Abomasnow, and Lantern. It looks like I actually forgot to include the loss in here. These were 10 wins, so unfortunately, you're only going to get wins here today. But that said, I think you guys get a pretty good idea about how this team works. You rarely see teams where I'm forced to stay in and let my lead go down in order to get the alignment that I need in the back. But that's kind of how you have to play ABA style teams when you win Switch. So just keep that in mind if you want to run a team like this. You are ABA weak to Pangoro, so if you see a Pangoro, you have to just stay in that matchup. What I recommend doing is farming up 10 Thunderfangs and then throwing the Psychic Fangs on the CMP tie when they would throw the back-to-back close combats, because that lowers their defense on top of their 2x lowering of their defense with the close combat. So you can actually get the full Thunderfang farm down in the 2-shield scenario, which is a very cool position for Steelix to be in. And then all the fires, you're just going to stay in with Steelix because you have super effective Thunderfang for those. Abomasnow, of course, just ties together this team really well, covering the weaknesses of both your back and your lead pretty well, other than the things I just discussed. But yeah, that's going to be it for me for this video. I want to say thank you to the expert trainer members on this channel: Benny Hemlock, Dr. Reen Mustache, Soham Patil, Eliana, Perry G, Blue Nation, Peter Rushworth, Alright 504, Chompus Clips, and Sons of Code, as well as an extra special thank you to the legend trainer members on this channel: Andrew Pitten, Musachu, Noodleman, Speedster, Estros, Fast Eddie Boss, and CD Slaskas. Thank you all so much for watching, and until next time, peace.